Welcome everyone to Backstage. This episode is going to conclude this season of Backstage. And so as my closer, I'm bringing in one of the fam, y'all, my fellow YWAMer. You probably know her name. She's a very well-known worship leader. Lindy Conant Cofer is here to talk to me all things of fostering a child, adopting that child, having a biological child in the middle of it all, and the incredible blessing this has been for their family. So enjoy my talk with a good friend and fellow YWAMer. Shout out YWAM, Lindy Conant Cofer. I want to talk fostering, adoption, orphans, the whole thing. Because you are multifaceted. You are multidimensional. And as much as I would love to hear your heart for worship, I'm sure that will come through in all of it. But I want to, because I've not done a podcast on this yet, and I've been waiting for you because I wanted you to be the one to talk about it.
Let's do
with
it.
me. Yes, let's do it. So I want to hear the whole thing. But first of all, a little background for people. First of all, welcome everyone. We just start automatically. We just start off the bat, Lindy. So
I love this. Come on.
And this is how we roll. We're YWAMers.
Let's go.
Actually, my parents are visiting this week, and my mom's here listening with me. They're from Kona.
Oh, fun.
And they live there too. So we got a room full of YWAMers right here. So there's no limits.
Let's go.
Except for 3:00 pickup time.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, but if Parker wants to come say hi, I'm not going to be opposed to it. Okay, so just if he wants to come say hi to Auntie. Okay. First of all, though, we met before you and Chase were dating.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it was pre-engagement. You came before we had a building or anything.
Yep.
To lead worship. And I don't remember the exact scenario, but obviously we fell in love with you. And we've been friends ever since. But tell me a little bit about your story with just normal girl from Oklahoma, right?
Yep, you got it.
A normal girl from Oklahoma. Run me through the whole thing up to marrying Chase, and then I want to talk how God brought in fostering, adoption, and a heart for orphans, and then the No Orphans in Heaven movement.
Yes, come on! Oh, yes, I'm so excited.
Woo-hoo! So let's do this. Okay, so you're in Oklahoma as a young girl.
Yep, Oklahoma, and I was even sharing with someone yesterday. It's like, I knew the structure without knowing the substance. Like, I knew the structure of church. I knew the rules, but I did not have the substance of faith. I did not understand who the person of Jesus was. So I was born into a Christian family, amazing parents, love them. But, it's just like, church to me was just a thing you went to. And
you do. Yep.
You do. Yeah.
Yep.
And so it was really my high school years. I just became super curious. Like, what is this all about? And, I'd been exposed to people who had given their whole lives to follow Jesus and full-time ministry. And
so is that what made you curious? Just observing?
Yeah, just observing and going
people,
what?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there must be something I don't know. And then there was a girl in my high school who was on fire, Jamie. The type of on fire you see where you just go, oh my gosh, she knows something I don't know. And that her name was Rachel Turner. And she just set my heart on fire of who is Jesus? What is he like? And from that place, I began to go on missions trips, different things like that. And I just remember on a missions trips, I went on my junior year of high school, and people were preaching the gospel, and you watch people get encountered by the love of Jesus. And I had the thought, I actually don't know if I've encountered the love of Jesus like that, the way we're sharing it. And it really shook me.
You're sharing it and you're wondering if you,
you're watching these people find Jesus. And I'm like, I don't know that I have found Jesus that way. And it really shook me up in a good way. And so I asked my parents if I could take a gap year and basically pursue God for a year after high school instead of going right into college. They were like, absolutely. So I Googled mission school, and that's how I found YWAM, Youth as a Mission. And I got to Kona. And if you've ever done a DTS, if you're listening to this and what a discipleship training school is, it's like a ministry school anywhere you'd go. But the uniqueness about Youth with a Mission is it's interdenominational and so many different cultures. So every week is a new topic. And I mean, and it's people coming from all different ministries, all different places. So you're basically drinking from a fire hose for 3 months. And I was like, what? Like, I was like, this is crazy. It changed my life. I had a real revelation of Jesus, but beyond that, I had a revelation of his love. And I went, I am ruined for the ordinary. I'm giving my life for this. And that's kind of what brought me to where I am now. And it changed me. And I just said, I'm going to give my life for this, because if one moment can change my life because I was around people who weren't ashamed of the gospel, then I feel called to live my life this way. And I feel it was like I went, you just kind of have that aha moment, like, oh yeah, wow, this is why I'm alive. And then, at that point, I didn't even do worship or anything. I just...
Oh, okay. So that's important. That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So worship wasn't even on the table at this point? You haven't written Every Nation yet.
No, heck no. Worship is not on the table. It's like, I was from a really
falling in
family.
love with Jesus.
Yes. I was from a musical family, but I was probably one of the least musical ones. So I never really thought music would be my thing, And so when I was in Kona, that's when Andy and Holly Bird moved there to start the House of Prayer and Fire and Fragrance. So because
what year is this? I think it was right after I left.
Yeah, 2008.
And married Dee. Oh my goodness. I married Dee in 2007, I think. Yeah. So, oh my goodness. Okay, this is great. Okay. So
how we really crossed paths.
Literally. I have a feeling we'll cross a lot more in the future.
Yes.
So you get there and you're there and the birds come to start the House of Prayer.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're getting lit on fire.
Well, yeah, because I'm like, okay, these people are speaking my language. They're burning for the presence of God, and the presence of God being the very thing that touches communities and families and people and schools and everything. So I'm like, okay, this is amazing. And at that point, when they were starting the House of Prayer, they were doing prayer sets. And there was only a handful of worship leaders on campus at that time. So basically, if you could hold a note, you were now leading worship or singing on a prayer set. So that's really what happened. It was divine timing. It was divine collision. I never pursued worship leading. And now here I am, 12 years later and 13 years later. But here's what's crazy. I did not know that God spoke before I went to YWAM. But I remember when I was like, I'm going to do this, having a picture in my mind one time. Now I look back and I'm like, it was totally the Holy Spirit. I had a picture that I was running down a dirt road and I saw this kid, and I picked up this kid and I saw another kid. And I was like, whoa, these kids, they need love. They need a home. And then I kept seeing more kids and I said, I don't have enough arms. And I began to grow out arms and was able to care for all these kids. And what's funny is, in my first 10 years in YWAM, it mostly being worship, I always thought about that original vision. But Lord, what about this place of adoption and orphans? I felt like that was the thing that launched me into YWAM. And yet it sat kind of in the back burner for so long. But of course now, 2 years into Chase and I's marriage, we got beautifully disrupted by the Holy Spirit to become foster parents. So.
Wow, that's so interesting. So you kind of had a picture of it before, and the worship took the front seat.
Yes.
But there was always this thing lingering, and of course they're all intertwined.
Absolutely.
But oh my goodness, that's amazing. So you join up with the birds, who we know and love, and do you just start serving with them? And is that how you met Chase? Or did you guys met in YWAM, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we met in Kona. So I went full-time staff in YWAM Kona with the prayer room, and then led a few outreaches with the Fire and Fragrance DTS. And then out of Fire and Fragrance came Circuit Riders. So Circuit Riders is based in Huntington Beach, California. That's where I live now. And it was just a beautiful encounter from the Holy Spirit. Fire and Fragrance is really focused on revival, reformation, the presence of God and to the power of God, intimacy and advocacy. It was just my heart language,
Yes.
And so from this, though, it was really focused on planning communities in the hardest and darkest places in the world. So we've got a community in Dubai and Nepal. But there was this window in Kona where this beautiful couple named Brian and Christy Brent moved to Kona. And it was just their friendship with the birds, you could just tell, like, so the Brents and the birds, God just began to do something between these two couples. And from it, in the midst of this, someone has an encounter where the Lord speaks, I'm raising up circuit riders again. So everyone's like, well, who are circuit riders? What is that?
Right.
And that's what birthed where we are now in Southern California, was a simple, all right, God, what are you emphasizing about the circuit riders? And it was the simplicity of the gospel and being taken to places where circuit riders of old, Francis Asbury, John Wesley, they would literally have their circuits they would ride.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, what are the circuits you're asking us to ride now? And there was this emphasis on university campuses. So Chase and I, although we'd met in Kona, we both joined the original team for circuit riders. So because of that, we became really close friends. But it was kind of the classic, like, we were really good friends, both dated other people. At one point, Chase was engaged. I was in a serious relationship on and off for almost 2 years. And then from that place, it was just like, great, we're comfortable in this like friend status, you know? And then one year, it was 2016, December, we were all hanging out. It was like our group of friends, and Chase walked in. I'm like, that's so weird. I just feel like I had some feelings towards Chase. And I had the thought, oh, is this one of those stories where it's like God opened our eyes to each other? I'm like, that I just was like, that will never be my story. Like, no way. But then I'm like, wow, I found myself really wanting to be around Chase. And I'm like, Lord, am I one of those people where that's happening to now?
Am I the person?
Yeah, like, are you opening my eyes to Chase Cofer? Like, this is so funny. So then I noticed, like, there's definitely mutual interest. And I'm like, this is not happening. So I'm like, I had been like in and out of a few relationships and was just at the place in my life. I think I was 26 and I was like, I'm just laying relationships on the altar. Lord, if it's you, if it's ever you again, I've got to know it's you. Like, I can't. Anyway, so I had put this fleece before the Lord. If this is you and it's divine timing of God, and this is the man you have for me, I give him 4 days to say something, and it's got to be clear, and he needs to have like a conviction of the Holy Spirit. And the next day, he just walks up to me at our offices. He's like, hey, I already know we know each other very well. So I'm not asking you to go to coffee. I'm asking you to go on a date to see if this is it. And I'm like, all right, yes, let's go.
Clear, very clear. Couldn't be more clear.
I know. So we dated 3 months. We were engaged 4 months. Got married.
Oh my goodness. And we love Chase. For anybody who doesn't know Chase, oh my goodness.
He's the best.
The best. Okay, so you get married, and so are you at this point traveling as a worship leader?
You know, when we got married in August, my first album, Every Nation, had just come out that June. So 2 months before we got married, my album came out. So it's so crazy. It was basically right when we got married was when I started traveling to lead worship.
Oh, how relaxing for you guys.
Right? I know.
What a slow, relaxing start it must have been to your marriage.
It was wild.
You hit the road.
Fun. We did.
You hit the road. Oh my goodness.
I mean, we had done a few things, but like, it really took off once the album came out. So,
oh man, this is a total side note, but that's the point of podcasts. Talk about Chase for a minute, because you had a visible name for yourself at this point, you know?
Right.
I mean, I would say, wouldn't you? Like, you were known. You were being known. You had album coming out. You were traveling, speaking, worshiping, all of it. You came through here with us. Talk about him marrying you, and how did he like support you, love you? He's just I just know him a little bit. Dustin, obviously, and him are closer, and he loves him, but he just seems like the most humble, supportive. He just exudes confidence in like the most gentle way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
so.
What,
talk about him for a minute.
Such a great like question, but thing to note, because I would say, Chase, it's amazing. This all stems from his devotion to Jesus. And when I got married to him, I was like, wow, this is awesome. How much I'm like, already knew from his lifestyle of dating him how devoted to Christ he was. But when you get married, you get a real window into someone's life. And
Yes, we do.
Yeah. His steadfastness before the Lord is the source of his confidence, hands down. And people comment on that all the time. Like,
it's very clear.
Who is this guy? Who, Chase, he's amazing. And I'm like, he is amazing. And what he's done is he recognized, he kind of separated like Lindy, the worship leader, and all the stuff. And he went, okay, let's focus on what is God doing through you? And how do we get around this as a family? How does our family go? We are about what is on Lindy's life, but this is a family assignment. And he is just let out in that so well, honestly, where I have felt like it never, sometimes I think as a woman, I kind of feared a healthy imbalance of like, oh my gosh, am I going to be like, going to have to quit ministry, or am I just going to be like it's like the woman who does ministry and it's separate from her marriage. And I just feel like Chase came in and bulldozed all that and was just like, this is about Jesus being the center and obeying and stewarding what's on your life. So how do we walk this out? All that kind of stuff. So it was really amazing our first year of marriage, because I feel like it was exactly what I needed, is to have that strong man that I could go, oh my goodness, I actually feel more secure to the point where I feel like I'm able to fly higher and go further. And it was just amazing. And we've grown in that even more over the last 4 years. And it's just been incredible. So
it's so awesome. I think sometimes when I was in Kona, I was doing the relationship week, of course, which is always so fun.
Yeah.
Teaching relationships. But it just takes a really strong man to champion a strong woman,
Yes.
And an anointed woman that I just have so much respect for him for. And it's greatly needed, I think, in today's like male society, is just you can be big. You can be big in love and stand next to a strong woman too.
Yes, exactly.
And smart, and I think smart people will see it as big.
Yeah. And he just had no insecurity to go, I'm going to serve this. And I know that my assignments are coming. And just watching him this year step into the send. And he is, he's pioneering the house of prayer in circuit riders called Greenhouse. And I just feel like, wow, what a beautiful example of him going, I'm going to take a pause for 2 years. I'm going to serve what's happening through my wife, which I never asked him to do. He felt from the Lord to do that.
Yeah.
And then now I'm watching God just pour out on him. And I feel like it's just causing our family to go to a whole new place.
But for everybody who's single, like when you're really looking and evaluating somebody, like how did you recognize like real devotion in him before you opened the window? Like what were there tells?
Yeah, that is such a good question. And I would say the thing I always noticed about Chase is he never fought for the stage. Because when you're young and in YWAMer...
Okay, can we just say that one more time?
Yes.
He never
fought for the microphone. He never fought.
Oh my gosh.
He always let the Lord do it. And I will say, before the Lord, like anyone listening to this, like I would say anyone from Circuit Riders listening to this even, when we first started here, it was about 10 of us that were really pioneering. And when we did a stop on a campus, it's like, well, who's going to preach? Who's going to lead worship? Right. And what do you do when there's like 7 preachers, but you've got one night you've all worked so hard on? And what I observed from Chase are like 3 years of really doing ministry together in Circuit Riders before we ever dated, was he never fought for a position, and he always kept his heart pure even when he was overlooked. But here's the crazy thing is he was by far the most encouraging young male leader to me.
Yeah.
And not out of flattery or like, oh, maybe I'll marry her one day. Right. He authentically would call out when he saw Jesus in people. And I just went, man, when you say 3 years of that, like, you're just like, this is not
just
fake.
Pure gold. Yep.
This is not fake.
Yeah, you can fake it for 6 months to try and get a date, not 3 years.
Right, right.
Yep.
So then when it came time where the Lord had really opened our eyes to each other, I had just, as a girl, sometimes you have your like, some girls were like, oh my gosh, the guy I married was everything on my list and more. Chase was the exact opposite of any list I ever made. And I make sure I tell girls that because I'm like, I knew what I needed. I had my list, but God knew what I needed. And, I thought I'd end up with the duo worship leader guy and we would both be artists and all the stuff, right? And then that didn't happen. And I'm like, what?
That's so real and could not be more accurate of how God does it. Yep.
But it was like, oh, this is way better than anything I could have thought of on my own. And that's what the Lord knew what I needed. But it's also what the Lord knew I actually wanted deep down. Yeah. And so when we began to date, it was a no-brainer for me because I was like, I already have seen his character tested so many times. Yeah. And how Chase carries the love of the Father and the presence of the Holy Spirit. I'm like, this is one of the best decisions I could make in terms of like settling all the questions of, is this the right one?
Yeah. When did we now know him by Parker, but for a long time we didn't know his name was Parker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just love, oh my goodness, I just love this whole story. So where did your heart for, because I know it's incorporated with your call as well as a couple. Yeah. Where did this all, the fostering and No Child Left Behind, No Orphans in Heaven, all of it, where did that start in your guys' heart?
Yeah. This is like a great story. I'm going to try to condense it down, but it really all started with Holly Bird, who is Andy Bird's wife. She began to so Christy Brent gathered a bunch of women in her garage. I think this would have been in 2000, I want to say 2015. And this is where a women's movement called Brave Love was birthed. Christy basically gathered a bunch of her closest friends or women she really believed in and was like, what does God want to do in this area of activating women? So she really challenged us to all ask the Lord, what does our brave love look like in our neighborhoods, in our homes, like where we're currently at? And Holly Bird was like, you know what? Hawaii's got one of the largest rates of teen pregnancies on high schools. How can we love these moms, these young moms? So she started throwing baby showers for these teen moms at these high schools in Kona, Hawaii. Well, a very long story short, one of the girls' kids ends up spending a lot of time with the birds. To them were the point where I think the mom realized she was too young of a mom to take care of her. And so Chanel, who is the birds, I think youngest. Is it her youngest?
Is it youngest? Okay.
Second youngest or youngest. Her and
we
Valor
just met last month with y'all.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
She was then now in the birds' home through foster care because Holly had reached out to these high school moms. And we were all shook by this, right? Because the birds have so much responsibility. Their schedule is crazy. The last thing they would have time for.
They have so many bio kids as well. Right?
Yeah. So they had 4 of their own kids. And then it's like, wait. How are they going to have 5 kids, let alone do the whole foster care thing? And then they just run into it like head on. They adopt Chanel. They've had multiple foster children in their home, just contending for their families. They've now adopted another beautiful girl, Makana. All that to say, the birds saying yes broke excuses. And Chase and I were so moved by that. And so we begin to see all these families who had every excuse not to do it, like say yes to this, because this is the demonstration of the gospel. And so when we were married, it was 2018. We knew the Lord was saying to start a family, but we kept feeling not to get pregnant. So we're like, well, I don't understand. Like, help me with this math equation, Lord. You want us to start a family, but you don't want me to get pregnant. And we were like, oh, you want us to adopt first? Okay, great. We go to an adoption agency. They had heard of my music. There was so much favor. I'm like, oh my gosh. Our friends, the Ketterers, went with us to the first consultation. It was amazing. And then, Chase is like, I have no peace I just don't have any peace. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have peace? That was amazing. He's like, I have no peace. So we're like, okay, let's pray. And then that's when we were like, I think we're supposed to foster. I think This is, we're not talking about the real crisis of, it's not just the fact that kids are orphaned. It's the fact that families are being broken down and the government is the one going, I guess we'll take care of it. And when it was never the government's job. Yeah. Like, this is the church's job to help single moms, to help the widow, to help the orphan. And so we just became extremely convicted. We started Googling foster agencies around us. I made a note in my phone with all their numbers and I started calling foster care agencies until I felt peace about one. And that's a side note. I get so many people asking, I just want to know how to get approved. And I'm like, I'll tell you right now, get God's heart and get on Google. Like, that's it. That's it.
Oh, that's so good.
Like, if you're listening to this and you're from Pastor Jamie's church, go there. Like, get God's heart and Google foster agency in
Lindy,
Allen, Texas. Like, that's
there
it.
You go.
That's it. And so it ruined us for it ruined us for the ordinary. And so we just went, we have to do this. And we got approved. We got a call to go pick up a baby boy. And, you know, in in a span of 24 hours, your whole life changes, you know. And my goodness. I understand it's adoption, you know, there's so much immersed in it. You know, I know that our gain through Parker's life is someone else's deep loss, you know. Yeah. And you'll never be able to just throw that away. And so adoption is the gospel, because the ultimate adoption is that we've been brought to God's family, you know, and understanding that adoption first and foremost, and the beauty of it and the power of it. And I just think we are, you know, we wrote this song called No Orphans in Heaven, Let It Be So on Earth. And we just believe this song's going to catalyze movement, that it will be a declaration of prayer for people to sing and prophesy. And those who are called to open their homes would just receive that commissioning from the Holy Spirit.
When it came down to, so you're Googling, well, first of all, I want to make mention of one thing you said that I think is like really important for anybody, especially who lead not even you know, vocational ministry, but anybody who leads or people look up to. You caught the heart from watching somebody else do it.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting part of the story that we've never discussed before, is that it didn't even come like a lightning bolt, like go and adopt Bubba who will become Parker, you know?
Yeah.
It was, you saw somebody do it and you were like, oh my. And so for those of us, and I know everybody is challenged by the lives of you and the birds, and everybody who is advocating for this is just like, is it not on us to do this? Because you caught it. Parker's life is different because you saw somebody else do it.
Yes.
And if that's not, and we all want the lightning bulbs, or the lightning strikes. We all want the light bulbs to go off. We want the angels to sprinkle us with adoption dust. But sometimes it's just what you said. Somebody else does it. We get the heart for it. And then we start Googling.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Lindy, I love that. Yep.
One of my best friends, she lives in Nepal. Her and her husband lead the fire and fragrance plant there. And
cool.
Someone interviewed him once, like, you know, how'd you get your calling to Nepal? And he goes, well, I read the Bible and I looked up one of the most unreached places. Oh. You know, and that that'll make you just kind of drop your shoulders and go, wow, like how self-centered have I made obeying Christ? It has to be about me receiving the right thing. Where I feel like one of the most beautiful things that God's restoring right now is like the simplicity of, oh, Jesus, you put the lonely, actually, you don't put them in orphanages. You put them in families.
You put them in families. That's
and
right.
So we are, I think that's the adoption movement. We are coming, it's on the shores, is not just, oh, let's take care of kids, but let's restore families. The end result is family. Families being restored, and where kids are truly orphaned, that they would be given families.
That's so good. So the practicals of this, getting a baby. So you feel peace, you sign up, and you have a baby boy. How many months? Like not even months. Was it weeks?
He was 17 days old.
He was 17 days old that you got who was then we all knew as Bubba.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you're not allowed to say their name.
Many of us. Will you explain that for some people? Just the process of you can't say their name and the things you have to go through. Just the practicals of it all.
So the practicals of foster care is really when a child, we always say Parker's story will be his to share. So we actually don't share a lot of what his story with his bio mom. We're actually still believing that relationship can be intact, but there's a lot there. And so
that he will tell
we
someday.
Picked him up. But we will say the Lord healed him. We got him at 17 days because that's when his drug detox was done. And so we went and picked him up. And, what happens when a child goes into foster care is, if this is new for people, the simplicity of it is they were removed from their home because they are, or their mom or dad at this point, Parker was a newborn. He never went home, but it was, or into his bio mom's care. You have this thing of, okay, the government now is saying you're not able to take care of this child. So now they are in the government's custody, and there's approved families that the government can put these kids into their homes, right? That's, if you break it down, that's what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So you have
that's
to
what a lot of us don't know, that process. Yeah. So you were an approved family at that point.
Yes. So we got approved. We went through all the stuff. And then what happens is you have to protect their identity, right? Because there's all these laws and rules and why you can't post pictures, you can't, all the stuff. So
that makes sense.
Here we are taking care of this sweet baby, and then one day they're adopted and suddenly you can tell the whole world. Yeah. So it's just like so funny. It's like, here he is, And
right. We've all feel like we've known him for the whole 2 years he's been with you, but now we see his face and we find out his name, which is so special. When you got him, did you feel, just as people who are contemplating this, did you feel a bond?
Absolutely.
Did Chase feel a bond?
Yes. We felt a bond because we were so immersed in the story God was writing. We just went, we just had that faith of like, you're going to lead us to the right child, and that you've picked for us, and that you've picked us for them, and that's what we have totally seen. We're like, even though Parker is Hispanic and he's just got this beautiful dark skin, it's like, we forget sometimes, but yet we're also like immersed in like, him and celebrating that about him. But he feels so like, I told Chase one time, I said, I'm so grateful for the gospel because I have moments where I forget I did not give birth to Parker. You know what I mean? Because we're so deeply bonded.
So you get Parker, and then what? So you're fostering. You are not the plan of fostering is reconciliation with the family. Is that correct?
Yeah. So in fostering, because a lot of people
the bio family.
I want to adopt out of the foster care system. And I do want to clarify one thing. If you want to adopt, please. Most adoptable kids, like they're adoptable right now, are 10 and up.
Yep.
Let's say 6 and up, right?
Yep.
So if you are taking in an infant, whatever state you're in, there's different regulations in different states, right? But the state of California will go, all right, we're going to give this bio parent 1 year to prove that they can get this kid back, So then for 1 year, you are working with a bio parent to help them in any way you can. Social workers are helping. And then, they have check-in moments with the judge, and the judge will either go, you're doing great, let's give her a little bit more time, or you're doing absolutely nothing to get your kid back. This is where this is going to be headed if you don't make a turn fast, And so that's kind of...
So you as a foster parent are, and we can edit anything you say that you were like, oh, that shouldn't be out there. I'll edit, Lindy, for sure. Just side note.
You're great.
But
this is all
for
good.
You as the foster parent, you're working with the bio mom as well.
Not all foster parents do. We did because we cared about
you
her.
Did.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk about that?
You have some foster parents who, our social worker flat out said to us, I work with so many Christian families, and she was like, you're actually living like Jesus would. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, a lot of foster parents don't want any interaction with the bio parents. They just want to let the state deal with it. And I was like, no, I feel like for Parker, I need to be able to look him in the eyes one day and say, I fought for your bio mom. You know, I didn't rip you away from your bio mom. We stood with your bio mom, and this is your story. And this is where God has brought you.
Yeah. So that was your choice that you and
That
Chase
was
made.
our choice. Yeah.
Okay. And did you have a good relationship with her?
We do. You know, we've had some, we just had to create, you know, and you can put any of this in there. I would say for any adoptive parent would know this. Like some people choose to do an open adoption, some closed. For us, we did closed, but we told her like, hey, if you are living this type of lifestyle, you can have a relationship with Parker. And so right now it's in her court, you know.
So when you get then Bubba, you and Chase are bonded to him. You love him, but you also are hoping or praying, I'm guessing, for reconciliation in a healthy environment for him. How do you? And I know because we follow each other on Instagram. I know you're the questions you get, but for those of you who haven't heard or watched Lindy's question and answer series, what's it like knowing and loving a baby you know might be not taken, knowing might be reunited with?
Yes, this is such a good question.
Yeah.
I'm actually, you know, it's so funny. I'm pulling up this quote for my brother and sister-in-law foster, and their sweet
Is this Judah
baby.
Rain's parents?
Yep.
Judah Rain.
Judah Rain, my nephew. He's amazing. So they're fostering, and I will say this. I'll start with this, then I'm going to read you what this thing she wrote is.
Yeah.
If we are not willing to love and it costs something, if we're not willing to do that for these children, who will? Because Jesus is the only King, the only God who demonstrates that kind of love. So as Christians, we are empowered by the grace of God to also walk in that kind of love. So if we're not willing to pay the price, then who is? And that's my question. People go, oh, I would just get too attached. My sister-in-law wrote this. It says, we were recently told that baby girl will be officially moving in with a biological family member. It's difficult to think about saying goodbye, but I know there's always hope and redemption in the story. And then she says this thing. Stephen and I were talking about how a lot of people feel hesitant to become foster parents because of the very thing we are walking through right now, reunification. When you love someone and they have to leave, pain is real, but it is so worth every bit of love given. This kind of love is risky, it's selfless, and there's not much promise of anything. But please hear me when I say it is worth it. Love that is given is not in vain. So get too attached. Fall in love. Take the risk. These kids are worth it. They deserve love and safety for however long you have them. Whether it's 1 month or forever, it's worth it all.
They are worth it, whether it's 1 month or forever.
Exactly.
That answered that question right on point.
Yeah. It's like, if you're not willing to love,
if it's about us and our attachment. Yeah. If we're so worried about our attachment and us being heartbroken, well, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, so following your journey, you get Parker, and then when does Zion come along?
Yeah, this is another great question.
We'll go through all the points. Yeah. We'll go through all the points while we
got Parker and
deep dive them. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, Chase, I'm not feeling very good. He left on a trip, a circuit rider trip. And I had my friend Crystal Camacho staying with me to help me with Parker. New mom. I'm like, it might just be hormones of like losing sleep, all the stuff. And I'm like, I'm just going to take your pregnancy test to rule it out. And because I just knew like at this point, we probably weren't pregnant. But I was like, I just need to know because I feel so strange. Parker is maybe 30 days old, you know. So we're talking he's young. Or he was, I guess, he would have been a month and a half, right? Because there's a month and a half between them. So I was like, I'm just going to take it. I take the test. There's 2 lines. I'm like, oh, perfect. I'm not pregnant. Because I thought, wow, if 2 lines showed up that fast, it must mean it's negative. So then like 3 hours later, I read the box and it's like 2 lines means you're pregnant. And I'm like, wait, what? So I go back and I'm like, there's another test in here. I'm going to do this again. And so I go and I'm like, okay, we are pregnant. So Chase is on a circuit rider, like evangelistic
Right.
trip
Tour.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's on doing campus stuff. I text him. I'm like, or I call him. I'm like, hey, are you somewhere we can talk? And I'm like, he's like, no, I'm in a car with a bunch of people. And I was like, okay, well, how much longer is this drive? He's like, oh, we've probably got like 2 or 3 hours left. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, is there any way you can pull off and call me? He's like, not really. Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And I'm like, I can't keep this in. So I'm like, all right, well, just call me when you get there. He's like, okay. So he hangs up and I text him, we're pregnant. He's like, no, you did not just text me that we're pregnant. And I was like, well, you told me you didn't want me to say it on the phone.
You
so
didn't
I'm
have time
you.
to stop. Yeah, you didn't have time to stop at a 7-Eleven.
So literally Parker was 10 months old when Zion was born. And now they're just like the best of buds, little Irish twins.
They're little Irish twins.
The best.
Oh my goodness. The best. Let's talk bio kid being raised next to an adopted kid.
Yes. Let's do it.
How is that? I don't even know the right questions to ask other than how do you maneuver that? How does that play out in parenting, in their relationship? Do they even know? Do they think they're twins? They probably do.
Yeah, they definitely, I feel like they operate like twins. It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun. And I would say God's grace is on their relationship. And people ask me all the time, do you feel more connected to Zion than Parker? Mm-hmm. It's like they kind of get like, I really want to know. Right. And I'm like, if you really want to know, no. There is a beautiful connection because I carried Zion in my womb. Right?
Sure.
But it's like my connection with both of them is different, but just as fierce. Because my connection with Parker is that God disrupted our lives and led us to him. And it was like he was in our womb in a different way. By the Spirit. And then it's like the Lord led us to him where Zion was physically in my womb. So do I have a different connection with both of them? Absolutely. Because how they both came into this world is different. But the fierceness of it is equal,
So you get Parker, but when you have Zion, Parker still isn't adopted. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's still in foster care.
Okay, so what did that process look like? And did you have to say like yes to adoption, or was it always like 100% if the bio family doesn't work out, we are here? Or was there ever a wrestling? Was there ever, you know what I mean?
No, never. There was always if Parker goes up for adoption, they'll always give the foster family and we were like, when they ask, okay, parental rights are terminated. Would you like to adopt Parker? We like laughed. Like, why are you even asking us this? Like, yes,
Yeah. Obviously we want Parker.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I told you this when I saw you last, but Dustin had dozed in bed.
Oh yeah.
and he woke up to me sobbing. And he's like, what is happening? Like, what horrible thing has happened in the world again? And I was like, oh my gosh, for once I have really good news. We saw Bubba's face and he got adopted. And that video of the judge, and it was all social distance then, right? I think we were in COVID, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the judge is distance from you guys.
Yep.
Like, so
we all have our
happy.
Masks on. Yeah.
You all have your masks. And Parker is like, I could not, because I had followed it, because we knew y'all before you were even married. We had followed Parker than Bubba's entire journey. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, and those little signs, I am adopted, and everybody's celebrating. And what was that moment like? Or was it different than what life had? Did it change anything really for you guys?
Yeah.
I'm genuinely curious.
It was like a day I feel where we were wrecked. We're wrecked. Because you go in, and Jamie, I mean, you can go look up online. We tried to put it in the video. But we have the raw recording of his adoption. And just what the judge says, like, you will now be receiving the full inheritance of Lindy and Chase Cofer. It's just like, it really does blow your mind. What the things that are even stated, and just to know he's forever ours. We just went, this is surreal. This is amazing. And there's just that moment where you could tell that little kid understood in some way, like, I'm so loved. And you can see it in his eyes in our little recap video. And
100%.
It was truly a day. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah. Because you don't know what to expect, especially if you've never adopted a child. And we had our own expectations of what we thought it would look like. Of course, then COVID hit, and we were ready to like break the record of filling a courtroom. And all of a sudden now only our family can go in there and all this stuff. But it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
He's at about a 10 of confidence.
Yes.
I mean, when I met him...
He's at an 11, I would say.
Oh, he's at an 11. He's at a strong 11. He's over the top. Yes. Wait, that kid knows, if there's one thing about that kid, he knows he is loved.
Yes.
And so will you, for real, I know it just from meeting him like once. I mean, he exudes like I am loved. He exudes it like I am adored, I am loved. And
absolutely.
So for every adoptive parent, for every family that's fostering, thinking about it, how do you take a child who, I don't want to say broken because, but how do you take a child that's statistically on a trajectory towards tragedy?
Yeah.
Turn them into a, a most loved, so loved child that we see Parker as?
Yes. No, this is a great question. I think it's a mixture of a few different things. Number one, I really am so grateful for the training we received. It's called TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention. And they really, the whole training is about how to interact with a child and love a child in light of trauma and knowing signals of trauma. Because it's traumatic being separated from your birth mom. Whether people like agree with that or not, the studies show like even just emotionally, a baby knows when they're separated from their birth mom. Yeah. And I will say to people, like, if you just kind of soared through your training, like, oh, we got done. Like Chase and I devoured that training because we went, no, this is like, Jesus gave tools to his disciples. So if we were going to bring not just Parker, but more kids with trauma into our home, we want to really know this training, but it's the training mixed in with the supernatural power of Jesus. So it's
practical and the spiritual.
Yep. Yes, practical and the spiritual, because we had everyone lay hands on Parker that he would have no effects from what he experienced of just some trauma in the womb. And that kid, he went to his 9-month appointment where they do all the tests to see where he's going to have some learning disabilities. And the doctor comes in with this crazy look on his face. And we're like, this is either really good or really bad. And he's like getting teary-eyed. He's like, I don't know what type, he used this exact phrase. I don't know what type of environment this child is in, but he has zero effects, no long-term effects. So you have to lean into both. I think people who just go, I'm going to bring kids in my house and God's going to heal them. Okay, yes, but you need to do your part. You need to get educated. You need to
this is so good, Lindy.
Yes. You need to get, you need to, in the same way, it's like, you don't go, I'm going to bake some bread by the Spirit, even though I have no idea what the ingredients are, right? You at least, that's fine if you want to bake bread with the Spirit, but you at least know
you're not
going to
get good bread.
Right. You at least, you have to know the ingredients to use. So if you feel called to this, if you want to know, you are bringing kids who are carrying trauma, you have to know, what are the ingredients you need? You can't just wing it. That's my thing is you can't just wing it.
Yeah. You were educated and then you had every person you know lay hands on that precious boy.
Yeah.
Yes. And contend for him. I bet someday he's going to look back and be like, wow, so-and-so prayed for me.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the places he was as even just before he was even adopted, fostered, and just the people who contended for him. I still remember when Jude, our firstborn, was born, and one of our pastor mentors had come into town, and Jude was probably 2 months old, and our mentor just grabbed him, and I thought, we were going to get the normal picture. Oh, look, Jude with and he was just like, I bless Jude in the name of Jesus.
Wow.
Just right there, just that whole, we do our part in the spirit, and then we do our part in the practical. And Lindy, I don't know that, this is just pure gold. Like what you're saying. This is so good. It's good for even not adoptive foster parents. It's good for parents in general. We can pray we can pray friends away from our kids. We can pray our kids out of addictions. We can do all of that.
Yeah.
But we also have to learn and know signs and make good choices and create an environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Create an environment for them where they can become I'm going to start calling it the Parker 11.
Yeah. Yes.
The Parker 11.
That's it.
Yes. So it is. It's so, oh my goodness. Was there something else that you were going to say? I thought you had another thing about helping kids move from when you adopt someone, moving from, the trauma of the separation into healthy confidence. Was there something else or what? No.
No, I think those are the two big things. It's
those
knowing
were the
those practicals.
Those were the two. Okay.
Operating in your authority, in the authority Jesus has given you.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. I still, and we'll close with this because we both have to go be moms. But
it's so real.
When I followed this journey with Parker, and when I saw him, y'all were here, I don't know, right when the Texas storm hit. So February, I don't know when. And you led worship and Chase spoke, Andy Bird spoke. And Parker, when because the story, some of my listeners don't know, but I had COVID in January and I had no symptoms except for it ruined my feet. Lindy knows this. Some of my listeners don't. And so it really took my feet out. And I went to all the doctors and I did all the prayers and all the things. And I'm in physical therapy and they are healing. Thank you, Jesus. But I came into the office and I limped in and I hadn't seen you for a year.
Yeah.
Hashtag COVID.
Right.
And so I limped in and you or Andy were like, well, let's just pray for Jamie's feet. And Parker ran over.
Yeah. He's so tender.
He beeline for my little feet. And he put his precious little hands on my Doc Martens that I'm actually wearing today. And while you all prayed for me, and I was just I was watching him, I was trying to receive healing.
Yeah.
But really, I was just this child that has been adopted in.
Yeah.
And if that's not what we all have been, and I don't know who said it might have been T.D. Jakes, it might have been John Wesley, who even knows, right? It might have been Spurgeon, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it said to be forgiven. Everybody thinks to be forgiven is the greatest of all Christian blessings,
right?
But it's really to be adopted.
Come on.
And I just am so touched and challenged by your story and by your surrender. And I'm 41, but Dustin and I've talked to you about that before, but we're already talking about, how we can do better in this area, how we can bring kids in, if the church doesn't do it, who's going to do it?
Exactly.
So will you tell me for a minute, just in closing, on the different movements that we can be, for those of us who are okay, we're not doing it, but we're feeling it, and not just feeling it in the sense of emotions and hype, but this is a mandate. What is it? Undefiled religion is this.
Yes, come on.
To care for
the orphan and the widow.
The orphan and the widow. That is it. And that is straight from James.
Yeah.
So how do those of us who really want to rise up, and for pastors listening who want to help partner with this movement that you are a part of, how do we do it? Where are the resources? How do we do it? Where do you get started? Just lay it all on us.
Yeah. Well, there are so many different ways to get involved. Like I said, number one is to start looking in your county what is going on. And then there's a few different layers here. So I always say here's my 5 layers. If you are not, if you're like, man, I'm called to this, start researching what is in your area. If you're not called to this, but you want to help support a family who is, you can sign up for things like Care Portal or Safe Family. And again, these are all things you can just search for on the internet. Care Portal is basically something that enables you to, it's okay, I have this need. I need 2 bunk beds. I just got 2 teenage girls. And then you can go, all right, here they are. Like we can provide these 2 bunk beds. Care Portal is really changing the game in terms of providing and letting people know the need. Safe Families is helping people who, before they lose their kids. It's Safe Families is going, families are reaching out going, I need help. I'm going to lose my kids because of unemployment or different things. If I could just have childcare, if I could just have this or this, it's really amazing. So there's that layer. Now, if you're like, man, I can't do Care Portal or Safe Families, find out where you can give. Find out where you can give your prayer, your time, your money, your finances. And if you can't do that, then you can pray. So if you actually go to my Instagram, Lindy, it's Conant, because Instagram will not let me change it to Cofer. Why Instagram, please?
Really? They won't?
No, every time
You're
I
still
try.
Conant.
Yeah, still Conant there. Cofer everywhere else. But there's a link in my bio to basically join a prayer movement and say, I'm going to commit to pray. We're working on a landing page where people can find all these links and get involved. But for now, I'm actually partnering with one organization called 1 Million Home. And they're focusing, their main focus is getting kids out of orphanages and into families. And so they're basically breaking this myth of, well, if they're in an orphanage, we're good to go. No, the end result is still all these orphans being in homes. So they've averaged out that literally $250 can get a kid home. So we've been fundraising to see this break out. And yeah, you can head to my Instagram. The link is in my bio for all that. So yeah.
Great. Lindy, I love you, girl.
Love you. So
love
good
your
to talk.
family. So good to talk to you. Thank you for sharing all this. There are 1,000 more questions, but I think like this really helps that we have the narrative and then we have the practicals as well of if you want to help, here's how we do it. And if you want to get involved, here's how we do it. And I think I agree with you. It is the church's time. And it's the church's job.
Yes.
It's the church's job. So I'm going to see you in a couple months, hopefully here soon. And you just bring this message right on in. And man, we love you guys.